The process of instructing someone to behave in accordance with predetermined norms or expectations or guidelines, is what referred to as discipline. And a person is subjected to punishment when they are made to suffer as a result of their wrongdoing. This is the difference between punishment and discipline. But there is more to this distinction between discipline and punishment than just the meanings of the words themselves that I am saying. We usually believe that we are disciplining children, whereas we are actually punishing them. And punishment impacts the emotional part of our children, while discipline engages them in reasoning. One way in which the feeling part of the brain is affected by punishment is the way in which we actually respond when we are in danger. That moment where you touch the fire, what tells you to remove your hand is the part of the brain that makes you feel the hotness. The part of the brain that gives you that feels the hotness, that is responsible for a kind of emotion of pain, is what is also responsible for how children feel when they are punished. And it is impossible to actually think clearly. The body produces an hormone called the cortisol, which responds to stress and to stressful situations in order to better prepare itself to defend itself, whether by fleeing potential harmful situations or maybe making a very withdrawing. And the response for this is what they usually call the flight or fight response. You don't want to work on the emotions of your children or the lack of patience or the desire to do so much by hitting your children, by practicing to hit, to yell, to curse them. And those who actually hit children will hit adults. That's the truth. Sufficient to allow you to learn and experiment with additional things that will help is what I'm going to talk to you about today. We want lasting results, and we are aware that many people do not hold this point of view. But the fact of the matter is that utilizing a cane is a speedy solution. The vast majority of people who work with the aid of a cane, who spank children, do not wish to look for alternative ways of dealing with situations at hand. And because employing those other strategies requires a great deal of effort, we are too lazy, and therefore you will require that you use spanking as a temporary solution. It is possible that if you beat a child in front of another, it will probably prevent them from doing something harmful, but it might not actually impact how they will behave later in future. Now listen, hitting children, spanking children, yelling at children, harassing children, verbally abusing children is not going to get us the kind of change we need in our world. Enough of that, because it is not a method of discipline. We need to teach children that everything they do has consequences. People defend hitting children because they don't want to deal with their own feelings, and each of us have our own feelings, and they don't have the patience and the commitment to learn and use other methods that will better and be more that will give us more lasting results. And as a result, we believe that hitting our children is the best way to discipline them. Calling them names, insulting them, humiliating them in the public places, slapping them is what we think is going to make the change. But no, it won't, because matter of factly is the fact that utilizing a cane is just a speedy solution. It will only work now. It's short term. It does not have a long term effect. It does not teach. And in order for us to teach children, we need time. We need to be patient. And a lot of us don't want to be patient. We want the now kind of results. Therefore, you require the cane every time. You keep going back to the cane if you're not patient with yourself. And this video training is meant to make you understand that you cannot get the same results. We frequently resort to hitting children rather than instructing them in the skills, in the abilities that they require, in pointing them to the correct way of doing things, to making them understand the power of making the right choices, not for our own sake, because we're not always going to be there, but for the sake of the days ahead of them. If you want your children to be resilient and have strategies for dealing with difficult life situations when you're not there, you should make sure that the tone that you adopt in dealing with children when it comes to discipline is both firm and calm, both kind and demanding of them to be of good behavior by teaching. See, a great deal of research has demonstrated that elevated levels of our adrenaline may be seen in the bodies of children who are anxious about the fact that they are going to be beaten, about the fact that their parents yell at them, about the fact that they are verbally abused. And when they are in that state, they don't have enough room to reflect or to think about how to, change their attitude. They will find themselves still in that pattern. And discipline does not take place. One of the errors that we make is making demands on children and permitting them to act without, equipping them with resources that are necessary for them to change. Change is a constant thing. And to tell parents to change is a difficult thing, but we have the necessary tools here. And if you're not patient, you can just leave this training right now because it requires you to be patient. Managing your children to get to know them, being kind to them, constantly trying to protect them from harm and trying to safeguard them from getting wounded is protecting them from the reality. You are allowing your children far much chance not to be independent and not to learn what it means to make mistakes. They will make mistakes, and it is not a healthy way to treat children because we are spoiling them by trying to protect them. Overprotective parents, over parenting, that's what it is. And once we are able to redirect our focus because we are not more knowledgeable, we are more enlightened, we will see results in our homes. And that's what the World Changer Parent is about. The most effective strategy for accomplishing this is to spend some time getting to know the other person, the child, and cultivating a positive relationship with them. A lot of us have gone through from family patterns, and it's time to conquer the obstacles that have been left behind by our odorous history. As a parent, there's something the Bible says about carrying on to the third and the fourth generations of children the sins of the forefathers. And this indicates that the actions and choices made by our parents, like our own parents, have had a significant impact on who we are and who we are becoming and how we have developed. And this indicates that the majority of us were born with some kind of character faults. We are not perfect. That we have the potential to cause a great deal of harm, even to our own children. And we will then begin to observe that there are behaviors that our children are even replicating, yes, in their lives because of the way we are parenting, because of our style of parenting, which can be very authoritarian. So you see that parents who have emotional scars carried on from their prior experiences. A painful experience can alter, the way that we think and can make us to either become stronger or can sometimes even cause us to behave very irrationally. Does this imply that we cannot be held accountable for our actions as adults because of the things that happened to us when we were children? No. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm saying that we need to think about the future of our children. Never acceptable is insulting, humiliating, yelling, hitting, or verbally abusing children. It is not acceptable. Accept it. Like Jesus made it quite apparent that it would be better, it would be preferable for a person to have a stone tied around their neck and be cast into the sea than to cause harm to one of the priceless children of God. Think about it. Even God does not want us to harm children. He doesn't want us to hit them. It is a terrible thing and a terrible thing to do to hurt a child. And punishment, yelling, hitting are punishments. The parents that we have become is as a result of the traumatic experiences of our own parents that were inflicted on us. And if we don't reparent ourselves, we'll keep repeating the cycle. And the consequences of carelessness could perhaps cause some discomfort for us in the long run. And that's the problem we are facing in the world today. If our children do not heed the call for us to ask them to, get out from the pool area and they fall into the water, there is a natural consequence, right? And in as much as the child is not going to, we're not going to watch the child drown, we'll make the child realize that you will sleep if you don't listen. The natural consequences of their behavior will catch up with them. And sometimes when the natural consequences have happened, the parents still spank the children without giving them any breathing space, because we want to implement the rod of correction. We want to do an eye for an eye. The justice system of the old. This is because the Old Testament is the only primary source of authority in some of our lives. But the truth is, we are in the era of grace and forgiveness. Parents, the world changer parent is a graceful parent, is full of grace. And we instruct children. We don't provoke our children to action and to anger. Whew. I know I speak with so much passion. I know it. The majority of parents who believe in the efficacy of punishments were themselves subjected to harsh treatment by their own parents, and they feel that they turned out well and that should just be good enough, and it has formed the basis of their belief system. And this is inappropriate way to interact with children. Children are very sensitive in a variety of different ways. Some make it, some of us children that were not well handled as children, some of us grew up in spite of how we were treated and we came out well. Others do not come out so well. The reality is that many adults have repressed their thoughts. Their self-esteem is so low. Regarding their emotional anguish, they are enduring. And then as a result, they begin to behave in ways that do more harm to the generation following them without even realizing it. Why do people who were treated poorly as children behave the same way towards their own children? Because they are not open to learning, because they have structured their thinking ability in a certain way. But please, let's open our hearts today. Let's choose to learn better ways of doing things. People who have been abused themselves are more likely to abuse others. They are more likely to be abusive to others. People who were reprimanded when they were younger frequently believe as adults that they have not been affected by the experiences of their childhood. They believe that because something was successful for them, it must be therefore good, and it will be successful for their children. But they forget that this is the 21st century. The internet is there for us to battle with. See, there is a connection between our brain and what happens in our parenting. That's what I'll talk about today. Let's learn about our brain structure, what they call the brain function, for a moment, and how we store memories. The first step, that's going to be like the first step to our healing for ourselves as parents. Our brain's limbic system is where we retain memories of how we felt at the time, including recollections of unpleasant feelings. This portion of the brain is nearly developed by the time a baby is born, and it begins to retain emotional memories as early as the 7th month of pregnancy. So when a baby is born, the brain is almost completely developed, And when cruel words, a child is hit, a child is yelled at, you know, even from the womb, when you begin, when a mother is mistreated, when a child is rejected or feels unloved from the womb, it shows. You will see a pattern, except if the child encounters the power of God that liberates. All parents make mistake, I know. We are all flawed in some way. And because of this, we must be careful of our children and how we are raising them. Children almost always react emotionally rather than logically. And remember what I was saying about the emotional part of our brain and the feelings part of our brain, the logical part of our brain, the part that makes us to reason, is what differentiates punishment from discipline. When the logical thinking center of the brain matures, the child is able to react, to respond in a manner that is more suitable and more effective by our teaching. And this is the defining characteristics that differentiates childish behavior from the kind of conduct we anticipate from grown-ups. And this is what ends up happening. The limbic system is the first part of the brain to be affected when something enters it. So, a global search is performed at the speed of light, which kind of sorts and stores emotional memories, both the conscious and the subconscious ones, that the new stimulus brings up based on, the amount of emotion that is attached or that is associated with it. So, if I say a certain word, there is a chord that strikes in the heart of a child or of an adult based on the memories that it brings back. And if painful emotion is connected to a memory, that memory will take precedence. And if the person suffering has not been acknowledged, the person has not gone through healing and processed, and forgiveness has taken place and complete healing, we will continue to behave in the same manner and we will inflict the same pain on our children. This is a very serious matter.